Hey everybody, welcome to Goshen Prepping. Last night I was asked, do I believe we're going to have an economic collapse? And I will tell you, in my mind, 100% absolutely our economy will collapse in the United States. And this is not simply just a delusional or fear-mongering thing. This is looking at history. This is understanding the dynamics of our country. Because if we look at other things like a nuclear weapon attack or an EMP or, World War III kicking in, I'm not going to say for sure on any of those. In fact, some of them are possible, maybe even probable. But unfortunately, when you look at the way our economy goes and the way that we're basically borrowing and printing money like there's no tomorrow, it is 100% not sustainable. It's not, you can't sustain an economy this way. And a tipping point eventually will happen. It's going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, and it will collapse. And when it does collapse, we're all going to be in the situation we're going to have to deal with this. And that's what this video is all about, by the way, is how we actually have practical ways we can deal with an economic collapse. Because one is coming, by the way. But I want to talk about very quickly first the evidence that I have to show you why we're heading in that direction. Then we'll get to the practical stuff. So go ahead and stick through the video. I want to show you all these things that are happening. First off, the number one internal driver we have in an economy is literally customer-based shopping. The citizens of the United States, it's important that they go out and buy things. And I'm not saying they have to just go crazy buying just whatever garbage is available, although that does happen. But, stocking up on necessities, buying food, etc. Having all those things is very important. Unfortunately, sometimes they buy too much stuff. I mean, that's modern America, isn't it? But as we see people buying things, we're seeing inflation going up. Things are getting more expensive. So instead of putting so much money into, I'll just say entertainment, and so much money into food, well, now it's becoming mostly food and a little bit of entertainment because people can't afford anything else. People are dipping into their savings as it is and using credit cards to buy the very basic necessities. Inflation is driving things crazy, way up there, and it's making it so it's stifling the purchase of a lot of things that are not something that's essential. Okay, things that we normally could buy without any problem. Gas prices are way up. Car prices are way up. Food prices are way up. Obviously, that's very dangerous when we see those situations. So obviously, we need to consider what's happening here, because when people say inflation, by the way, mainstream media and all them push and say, oh, we have inflation because people are spending too much money. Bull. What's happening is the feds are borrowing and printing so much money, it's deflating the value of the money, and we see inflation. It has zero to do with people actually buying things, by the way. People are not buying things as much anymore, not near as much, but inflation's going back up again. So go ahead and answer that one for me, government. The second driver of an economy is going to be things that we basically import or export. And as a country, what you want to do is be a major exporter. We want America to build the best, make the best clothing, make the best electronics, etc., and we sell them to other countries. And by doing that, it really raises how our economy here in the United States. But we're seeing just the opposite. Since the 70s, instead of us having a trade surplus, we have a serious trade deficit that's only been going down, down, down. And you can see that right here in this graph. It started with the price of oil skyrocketing at the time, and it's also the same time when we started seeing massive purchases of things from Asia. Even it's still today, obviously. Back then, it was buying stuff from Japan primarily, but today it's buying stuff from China. And it's funny how Japan and ourselves are such close allies, and Japan tries to put out quality stuff. You can still buy Japanese cars that last, and unfortunately, way better or way longer than a lot of American cars. But Chinese stuff that we're buying now is just crap. You buy it, granted, it's cheap, but it's going to last a quarter as long as if you bought something that's actually more quality. All right, it's dangerous. And let me explain this whole trade deficit thing so you can possibly understand a little bit better. So let's say that we're looking at, you live in a small town America, and you own a business. Let's say it's a hardware store. And in that town is 20 little businesses, and here come all the customers. They come in and buy hammers and nails and everything from a hardware store. You use that money and you go to the next business and you buy some food. You go to the next business and get a haircut. You go to the next business and buy whatever. Obviously, that's the whole situation with basically the money exchanging hands in a small town over and over again. But all the businesses, you'll find some that do really well, some that don't do so well, and they'll fluctuate a little bit. But it's a practically speaking when it comes to small business and even playing ground, obviously. And then somebody moves in down the street that is like a major corporation. This video is less about the corporation part, by the way, but let's say it's a Walmart that moves in. I could buy my hammer and nails from you, from your hardware store, $1 for a box of nails when Walmart has it for 75 cents. And you know what? I could buy a saw from you for $1, but it's 75 cents at Walmart. And the list goes on and on of all the things, how they basically undercut prices. And granted, buying a box of nails for a quarter cheaper and buying a saw for a quarter cheaper is one thing, but guess what? Now your whole cartload of stuff, you could be saving some big dollars by going to Walmart. And that's how we see the raping of modern America and small town businesses. But this video is not about Walmart per se. It's an analogy understanding the economy of our country. That little town we live in, that's our country. And you own one business, all these other businesses, we all help each other, and all the money basically stays in America. In fact, we could possibly even sell it to another town. But when we say a monster coming in, a monster company coming in, or like China is the monster company, when we look at economics, they'll come in, sell everything cheaper, and suddenly now people aren't buying American stuff. They're buying it all from China. And since we buy so much Chinese crap, and since China buys such very little American stuff, we have a massive trade deficit. Now, combine that with numerous other countries as well, and America is in a major pickle. We're in big trouble because of this. And granted, things like Walmart doesn't help. Walmart used to say we sold so much from USA, but the stuff, that was a lie, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. And on top of that, there's so much Chinese stuff in Walmart also because Walmart wants one thing, and that's to sell things cheaper than everybody else. So what does America do? For you and me, if we own that little hardware store and people start going to other places, what do? Do we borrow more money to make the hardware store better? Do we borrow more money to make it grow? No, eventually you're going to have to consider selling something else or you're going to go out of business. But if you keep borrowing to make your hardware store grow as Walmart's down the road or China's down the road, what's going to happen? You're going to go out of business and you're going to end up declaring bankruptcy. That's what's happening in America. We have so much trade deficit and so many problems with money that normally we would say, you know what? Time to go ahead and call it quits, but we can't call it quits, our country. So what do? We print and borrow more money. Something you're not allowed to do in your hardware store, by the way, no matter how many fine tools you have. Printing your own money is not allowed, but in America it is. And that's what they do. Every time any situation comes around, they just simply borrow and print, borrow and print, borrow and print, continuously making more money, which deflates our dollar and makes things in the long run far worse. I don't know if you knew this, but did you know that 70% of all US dollars ever printed since the start of the United States are actually printed in the last 24 months? That shows you how much US currency is out there and how much they continuously print. I'll be honest with you, when they talk about 70% of all the US dollars, that's not necessarily money in their hands, but it's literally digital currency as well. We have a lot of money that our government is putting into the circulation more and more and more, and 70% of it is just the last 2 years. They continuously pump the economy with more money, which makes things a lot worse. And guess what? Causes a drastic rise in inflation. And that's exactly what we see. If you and I did that, continuously borrowed more money, we can't pay our bills. Hey, get another credit card, max it out. Get more bills, let's another credit card, max it out. Eventually, first of all, nobody's going to give more credit cards, but you're going to declare bankruptcy. The government does this. But the government doesn't declare bankruptcy. They default, and we're going to see the economy crash because of this, because the time is going to come when literally they're not going to be able to keep up with this. We are, in my opinion, past the point of no return. I wish right now we had a strong president who really was for the United States, not simply some puppet. I'm not talking about one side of the aisle or the other. I'm talking about we have a lot of puppet regimes going on. Presidents aren't about doing presidential things anymore. It's simply just about politics and scratching each other's back. I was talking with Chuck Colson a few years ago before he died, and we were talking about this, on how even if you want to run for office, good luck just running for office being just like a shoe salesman. You pretty much have to be a lawyer, and you have to be well-funded and have a lot of people on your side to even consider running for even the smallest of offices now. All right, so what do? We're in trouble. We're going to see an economic collapse. So now we understand why. You probably already understood why, but now we're going to go into the strategies of things that you can do to prepare for this. And I'm not saying the strategies of our country. A strategy of our country would be stop buying Chinese crap. Start encouraging industry and factories in the United States. But obviously, as a person too, start buying stuff only made in the United States. And that'd be nice. We'd love to do that. And I'm sure a lot of you already do. But here's the thing. You buy something from the United States that may be like $5 and you can get it online or Walmart for $1. Times are tough right now. So I understand why you can't always afford buying stuff in the USA, but I want to. All right, so what can you do? Number one, you need to do everything you can to become debt-free. There's all kinds of different thought processes on this. The way I'm practically debt-free. The way I went through it at the time was I took my highest interest rate, whatever it was. It's usually a credit card, by the way, if you have credit card debt, like 24%. And let's say let's say you only have 5 bills and you pay $100 for each bill. And maybe like one month you have an extra $100. So put it toward the most highest interest rate thing you have. And that, let's say it took you 4 months and you finally pay that one off. Well, guess what? Now you have an extra 100 you can put toward the second high interest. Now you're putting 200 toward it. That takes 5 more months. And now you have $200 extra plus extra stuff you put to the third highest bill. And eventually you're going to eliminate all the higher stuff first. And because if you don't, that's wasting money. Your mortgage is usually the last on the list because, first of all, it's the most amount on there, but the interest rates for mortgages is usually pretty low compared to like credit cards or auto loans, et cetera. So you need to become debt-free as quick as possible. I know that's difficult, especially for the fact that many of you are probably on a fixed income, but honestly on the list, I'll talk more about that in a minute too. Number 2, to be ready for what's coming, you need to be adaptable, very adaptable, by the way. Don't keep your mind rigid that you're always going to do things in one direction. Right now, you may earn money and fill in the blank. Maybe you do have a job. Maybe you work from home. Maybe you're a YouTuber. Maybe you sell on Etsy. Maybe you have a fixed income from the government. It doesn't matter, by the way. Do what you can to earn that money, but try not to stay just on that one path. People all over the place find alternate ways, to try to make some extra money here and there. Obviously people say sell things, but just selling your goods is only going to last so long before you don't have any more goods. Try to think of ways you can do as far as what's really a good niche for you, or niche, as people say. Maybe you love kids. You know what? I don't mind watching your kids when they get out of school for a couple hours until you get off work. I'll only charge you, and it's a minimal amount, but every dollar helps. Find something that works very well with you and try to go down the extra path. It may be a few paths, by the way. You know what? On Tuesday, I watch little Lex and Timmy, for 2 hours. And on Thursday, I go walk dogs for this neighbor. And on every other Sunday, this person over here needs me to, and fill in the blank. So don't think you have to do just one thing. You need to be very adaptable and looking at different ways of possibly having money coming in. Number 3, once you do start having some money come in, you need to have an emergency buffer. Because one of the biggest things that causes people to start using credit cards in the first place is they don't have an emergency buffer. And guess what? Something emergency happens and they're like, what am I going to do? I need my car. It broke down. I have no money, but I do have plastic money. And there you go down the path of using interest rates. Obviously, you don't want those interest rates. So if you try to set some ahead of time, even if you start at the very beginning putting so much money per month, just a few bucks, and maybe some month you have something coming in at your birthday and people give you $100, put that in savings. Try to set up an emergency buffer and have some cash on hand for this situation. Now, if we do look at an economic collapse, that cash may become worthless quickly. So you may want to consider other venues of having things instead of cash. Well, then we look at the number 4 option, having things to barter. This is a very important thing. I like simply just having canned food to barter, because if you have canned food, either you can eat it. You buy a can of corn right now for 50 cents at Walmart, and we start seeing problems with inflation. We start seeing things going out of control. We see hyperinflation. That can of corn may be $5 in those times, or even just small inflation, $1.50. So if you take the extra money and put it into bartering items that you can use too, you know what? I can't trade this can of corn. At least I can eat it. Those are good things to have. Everybody talks about gold and silver for bartering. I'm not saying no. I'm surely not. But when you talk about investing in gold and silver, that's not what you should be doing, because that's an investment. That's putting money into trying to gain interest in something. By the way, let me kind of put it in a perspective so you understand. If you have a credit card that's 24% interest rate annually, but then you put some money into an IRA, or if you put money into gold and silver and it's bringing you a return of 5%, you're like, yeah, 5%. No, you're paying 25% for the credit card. You really should try to get the credit card off first before you start investing. I'm not saying start putting food aside ahead of time when you still have debt. I'm not saying that at all. I would still put food aside as well, because you know what? You can't eat gold. You can't eat silver. And having some food when crap hits the fan obviously will save your life, no matter how much credit card debt you have. So either way, you need to balance it. Try to stock up things people barter with. And by the way, the 2 things people barter, food and vices. So cigarettes, liquor, wine, cigarettes, tobacco, I don't know what vices people have. All right. Then with that, you need to have the skills in bartering. I don't mean the skills as in like, hey, I'm a really good negotiator, but you can barter your skills. Maybe at one point you were a high school teacher, so you have the skills of teaching kids. If crap hits the fan, People want to teach their kids certain things without sending them to school. Maybe you can do that and barter with them. Hey, I'll teach your kids 2 times a week if you give me 3 cans of peas, or maybe you're pretty good mechanically. So I can come over and I'll tell you what, I know how to fix your car. I can easily fix that for you. And you don't need money for this, but I'll go ahead and trade you if you do this for me. So having skills you can trade, that's actually a vital thing too, rather than simply just tangible things. And of course, you don't need any money to own skills. I'm sure you already have those. Number 6, this is a big one for me and my family, is practice in security. Desperate times are coming. Scary times are coming. When we talk about a collapse, we're talking about people aren't paying taxes. Police forces are let go in extensive motions. We're going to have a lot of police officers not working. So who's going to come to your assistance? You need to be able to deal with violence and unrest, and even just safety, because those things will go out the window when that happens. So you need to practice and train in security measures and weapons and such. And even that, but home defense as well. Not just weapons, but home defense, as far as are you able to fight and do what you need to be able to protect you and your family. Number 7, with that, I always recommend you go into some kind of martial arts. Personally, I think the number one thing you should try to study to protect yourself, I don't care if it's crap at the fan or if it's just a regular day walking down the street, is Krav Maga. Krav Maga is a very powerful weapon that you can do in case somebody comes tries to grab you, grabs your kids, tries to take you, whatever the case may be. And there's all kinds of things you can do that. And what's nice about it is studied by the IDF. It is real world protection. It's not simply just like, I love Taekwondo, but when you use certain blocks of Taekwondo, the blocks are very pretty and graceful and such, but is it really going to stop somebody trying to punch you? Maybe, maybe not. Krav Maga will. Then finally, the last thing you really need to do now to be ready for this, because again, this is coming, is get into shape. And getting into shape, I know it's like almost hypocritical saying this, and you don't want to hear this. It's actually a lot easier than you think it is. Like people talk to me and say, wow, you lost so much weight. What'd you do? It was simple. I stopped eating. That's my joke, obviously. I didn't stop eating. I went keto. But between eating right, how about that, and doing lots and lots of exercises, it's really easy. I think the problem is, in America, we love complacency. We love to just have comfort food. When things get really stressful, it's this simple, just normal neurological thing we do, is we like to eat more food to comfort us. That's what it does. When you put food in your stomach, it activates what's called your parasympathetic activation, and it kind of makes you relax. People are anxiety eaters, mankind is. So you have to try to basically put away that and instead focus on things you can get in shape. And you don't have to be like 25 years old. You could be 75. I actually know a lot of martial artists who are 75 years old. And granted, they may not be able to do a lot of their kicks and hits anymore, but they're in really good shape, especially for somebody else who's also 75 years old. So you need to get in shape. And I hate to say that because it sounds like your dad talking to you, but we know it's true, right? We all need to get in shape. But you know what? Put in the comments below, what are some things we also can do to get ready for this imminent collapse? Because again, we saw the evidence. It's only a matter of time before any person would be declaring bankruptcy. When the government finally defaults because they can't pay back their loans, which will eventually happen, you can only borrow so much money before it all collapses. Well, you know what? They're not the ones going to be paying for it, metaphorically speaking. We are, and we have to be ready. Thanks for watching.